So the video has spilled into Saturday and the weather is not so good, but we'll continue on anyway. I'm in the herb garden now. This is the second year of its existence, and it's doing really well. It's really happy. What I did here originally was put down a big layer of mushroom compost and then loads of wood chip, and I created 4 rows of pretty much perennial plantings. Got rosemary, thyme, oregano, tarragon, sage, chives. Put in an olive tree this year, loads of mint. There are poplar trees and willow trees all grown from cuttings that are really after growing high and much taller than I ever expected. And some beautiful sunflowers this year which didn't get blown over. Great success. So just beside the herb garden is this new area, the fire pit area. This was the groundworks for this was done as part of the pond dig last December. I always intended to leave a circle here and later have it finished in stone. Beautiful stone, fire pit in the middle. First time we tried it, it was really smoky, so we drilled some holes in the very bottom so it gets some airflow coming in, and it's improved it a little bit. I'd always intended as well for the wastewater coming out of the wash and pack area to be diverted into the pond. It used to go into a storm drain at the front, but I have it now coming under the gravel path down this concrete drain that I built shortly after the pond was dug, and it works really well. So all the wastewater now comes down into the pond, which it's a nice constant source of fresh water, especially in times of prolonged dry periods. But the landscaping around, there's silver birch, 10 trees in all surrounding the fire pit, and they're interplanted with flowering quince, and then I have primroses planted at the base of all the birch trees. I think over time, once these trees grow up and form a bit of a canopy, this will be a really cool area with a kind of really nice relaxing vibe to it, where you feel isolated, and the pond is just there as well. So I think this is going to be a really nice area. Just a quick trip into the nursery tunnel, and not a whole lot going on at this time of year. A few transplants here of winter salads that I've been meaning to get out, and some kale, spinach. The tomatoes are all just finishing up now again, due to lack of progress on the main growing tunnel. I grew tomatoes again in containers this year, and with pretty good success, I would say. I'm getting a lot of tomatoes off the plants weekly at the moment. It's hard to grow them in containers because you got to really keep on top of the watering and fertility. But I've been using a new product this year called vinasse. It's a byproduct from the sugar beet industry, and really good for the fruiting stages of the tomato plant. And I've been giving them all a pretty consistent feed of liquid seaweed over the growing period. A few plants here that I grew, some cuttings. So we've got some jostaberry and gooseberry currants. Took them all earlier in the year. They've all taken off. Got some basil here that I'm using as for herbs in the kitchen, and some mint and horseradish and other things, just experiments really. There are some plants here that I love because they're seeds that were brought back from Cyprus. There's some lemon here. We tried some cucumber from seed. They grew quite well until I cut the main stem and made balls of it. And then these grape plants over here. 2 years ago I was in Cyprus and walking through a mountain village, and I just plucked a couple of grapes off that were hanging over the side of a stone wall coming out of somebody's garden, and I just plucked a couple of grapes. I ate them, and then I just said, oh, why don't I just hang on to these seeds? Stuck them in my pocket. When I came back, I found them one day, and I was like, why don't I just try plant them? And all 3 of the seeds germinated, and I put 2 of the plants in the ground here, I think late last year, and they're absolutely thriving. And it's just amazing to me to think that these originated up in the mountains of Cyprus, and here they are in the hills of Middleton. So yeah, another season in the nursery tunnel comes to an end, and let's keep moving. The compost bay is not new this year. I built this last summer. Just to update you on the first pile of compost that I built, it seemed to go pretty well. I have this really nice compost here that smells really earthy and finished. I think I did add a bit too much wood chip to it, and wood chip just doesn't really break down that well, or takes a long time. So what I'm going to try now is actually use straw as the primary brown ingredient in my compost. So this bay here that I've designated to a brown material only, because I think it's important you have a brown material on hand. You want to be using essentially around a 50-50 mix of brown and green, and it's always the biggest problem I hear is people not having enough brown material. So I'm going to replace all that wood chip with straw, and then every time I put in a layer of green, put in an equivalent layer of straw. Or what I'm going to do this year is pile up all of my green, because it's coming in so quick at the moment, and then basically build my piles in here, and then they'll get hopefully really hot, burn off all the pathogens and weed seeds, and I'll be left with really good compost that I can just bring down to the concrete shelters. And I'm very much an amateur at it still, but I'm going to absorb as much as I can, and I think you just learn by doing. So I have my first pile built. I'm happy enough with it. That's pretty good to use on stuff. I'll be happy to use it, and over time I'll learn and refine my process here. But I have all the tools I need. I have a compost bay, and I have a willingness to learn, and I'm motivated to really make sure this farm is fueled by everything that goes on in here. This tunnel, one day we'll see it to completion. It's now 2 years in the making. It's pretty bad that it still doesn't have plastic on it, but I'm not in the biggest rush either, and I do want to do it right. On a more positive note, the beds are all completed, and that was a big job. I took time off work earlier in the summer, and I got through it in a couple of days. So I've been using these kind of timber frames to help me mark out the paths and the actual beds themselves. So the beds are 75 centimeters wide, same as the market garden. I'm standardizing beds everywhere, which really makes a lot of sense in terms of the tools and the nets and for crop planning. So on the beds right now is what's called a non-woven geotextile fabric. It's a really hardy fabric that's breathable and permeable, and that's just covering the beds right now while they're not in use, protecting them and keeping them weed free. So 5 beds built. They're 13 meters long. Obviously I couldn't keep the same length as the market garden, which are 10 meters, because I'd be wasting a lot of space. But I do have a nice 1.5 meter buffer here, which I always wanted. I know a lot of people use the whole length of the polytunnel, but I just really want a bit of room in here to maneuver. I want a water container here that I can dunk my watering cans in and manually water where I need. Just some little area, bench here for tools, and just I think it's worth it. I'm happy to give up a little bit of space for that. So the beds are built. What needs to happen now is crop bars need to go in, The base rails, timber base rails need to go in, and then finally plastic goes on top. I need a bit of help for that. I've actually had some great help already with this from some friends. It's all wired, so I've got a kind of control center down buried underground with all of the solenoids wired back to the irrigation controller, so I'll be able to have drip and mist irrigation in here, and electricity and a regular tap. And I've also wired, I think I need to go get that dog, he's wandering into the neighbours. Yeah, I think I'm done here. So this is another addition this year. This is called a dead hedge. And a dead hedge is a human-made structure really, of old foliage, cuttings, branches, twigs. It's all dead, although there's a lot of life in here, and as I look here I can see a little ladybird happily nestling there, and there's a lot of life in here, I'm sure. This has created its own little habitat, and I'm sure birds will nest in it. There's probably a lot of ground mammals, insects, everything. But that's not why I built it. The main reason I built this is as a wind barrier, a shelter for the young woodland, to really allow the woodland establish, because the wind really does come up hurtling across from the southwest down there. So this is doing a good job, I think, and it's really a nice way to get rid of all those big bulky cuttings, branches and twigs that you can't really put in your compost because it won't break down. So all of the garden trimmings I take up here, brambles, all that stuff, and a nice place to put it. Doesn't look terrible, doesn't look great. These vertical posts are just from an old fence that was down near the perennial patch, and I put it to good use by just splitting the fence posts and hammering them into the ground, and this is what's keeping the structure of the dead hedge. So we might as well keep going and move into the woodland. So this is the young woodland, and this was planted back in February with the help of some work colleagues, and it was a really fun day. We got through it all pretty much in one morning. By my count, there's about 170 trees here. They're a mix of Irish native species, and they were kindly donated by an organisation called Trees on the Land, which I recommend you check them out, because they do these donations not only for farms and small holdings, but for schools and back gardens and communities. So anyone looking for trees, definitely get onto Trees on the Land. I got a lovely mix, and I'd say a good 95% of them have taken off and are doing really well, and can't wait to see what this turns into. So the way I set this up, I actually used the tractor and the trenching tool, which is designed to lay pipe, and I just basically ripped lines into the ground 2 meters apart, and I made them in a kind of curving fashion to give it a little bit of character, and which makes it really easy to mow the grass with the tractor. The tractor mowing width is 1.5 meters wide, so plenty of room to maneuver. I can easily cut the grass in between, and it's really important to keep the grass down in the first few years to let these trees really establish. But they all seem really happy. I'm keeping them mulched, so when I planted them, I would have put down cardboard first, and then I dumped on top a load of wood chip. Over time that wood chip was broken down, and I've recently topped up the mulch again and pulled back some of the grass. I found a load of this old compost. My neighbour was dumping grass there just near the northern boundary, and it had turned into a lovely compost, which nobody was using. So I took that and I spread it on all the trees, give them not only a good feed, but to keep the weeds back. So really happy with this area. I'm happy to just give this over to nature to be a lovely woodland. Basil also likes to fertilise the plants in his own way. While most of the trees here are native Irish woodland trees, some aren't, like this here. This is eucalyptus, and it's not the only one, because there's 3 rows of eucalyptus here right beside the dead hedge, and that's intentional because what I wanted here in these rows were very fast growing trees, almost sacrificial as a wind shelter to protect the woodland as it grows. There's maybe 40 of these trees. These are not that popular with some people because they're not native. They are allelopathic, meaning they can release toxins that prevent other trees growing nearby. But I think they're really nice trees as well. I think they're a lovely tree, and I don't really want these to grow into tall specimens, because that's the other concern people have about them, is that they very easily fall over in our climate. They're not native here, so they're not designed to be here in heavy winds, and a lot of eucalyptus trees fall over, from what I hear. What I was recommended to me though recently was to actually start coppicing these at the ground once they grow up a bit, and that way they'll start growing multiple smaller trunks, and the wood can be used then for firewood or whatever, because we actually do use a multi-fuel stove in the house, and it would be nice if there was a use for the wood here, and that's why I got them. Actually, the guy who delivers my polytunnel, and he grows these for biofuel, and sent me up 50 transplants with the last delivery. So see how they go. Willow would have been an option here, but I'm already growing a lot of willow, and I actually think these are really nice plants, and look how fast they're growing. These were tiny transplants not that long ago. Christ. He's got the zoomies. Yep. Pretty normal, I think. Another project I'm working on now is the building of this fence, which is a critical piece of infrastructure to keep that boy inside here, because he's escaped into the neighbours a few times. So we have to be very careful right now when he's out here on his own, because this laneway leads to a very busy main road, and there's also children and elderly people around, so we need to keep everybody safe. So what used to be here was this kind of fence post. This is designed to keep sheep in, I think. This is very old and rickety and had fallen over all along here, so I'm having a go at building a fence myself. I know I need another post here. This is not very strong, but I'm just going to get it up and go back in and put another post in afterwards all the way along. And he seems to... You like your fence? Does it work? Yeah, getting the time for all this stuff is hard. So I started this probably 2 weeks ago, and that's the progress I've made. It's going to be a little gate there as well, because you still want to be able to let our neighbours come in and walk around and enjoy the place. And he seems to know he's not supposed to go out, but he's only showing off to the camera, I think. So we'll get out of here. Another shelter. This is the year of the shelter. So this is an outdoor shelter built a couple of months ago, and it's in the yard outside Yellow Betty headquarters, next to the herb garden. It's pretty close to the house as well. The plan for this is to store a lot of my potting and seeding compost, store firewood, other bits and pieces, the oil tank for the houses in here as well, so it kind of makes it a little more aesthetically pleasing when you drive into the house and don't see the big oil tank. One thing that I've really observed over the first couple of years, and it's kind of obvious, is that this country is not very conducive to storing stuff outside, given its somewhat damp nature. And I just think in terms of prolonging the material and protecting your consumable materials like the compost, the wood chip and firewood, obviously need to get them inside and keep them dry. I was storing my compost bags outside here up until now, the Classman bags, and they were just getting damp and weeds were growing in them, and the bags were breaking because of the sunshine. So I'd go pick up a bag and the whole thing would just break. It was getting really annoying. So these are going to get stored in here now, along with whatever else I need to store. It's got a metal galvanized roofing on it, with some of the sheets are clear perspex, so it's getting good light. And he added a couple of windows as well. These are just panes of glass that were left by the previous owners and put to good use. You don't really want to look inside it right now. It's a bit of a mess. I haven't organized anything yet, but that's a winter job. This is keeping me on the path to getting organized, and now is the time to kind of get these structures in place while I'm still building. Okay, we're gonna leave it there for now. Hope you enjoyed the tour. I always enjoy these tours because they remind me all of the good progress. I actually had my first farm walk about a month ago, and it was just so enjoyable. I had to pinch myself at times that I was actually walking a group of people around the farm that I once dreamed of. And it was even more special because it was a group from the Organic College in Limerick, which is the place where I did my 2-year distance learning course. And Paula, my tutor, who I had at the time, she asked could she bring the current crop of students down, and I was like, my first reaction was no, God no, I'm not ready for that. But then I said, this is going to be uncomfortable. These are the sort of things you say yes to. And the purpose was not to kind of show a functioning commercial farm, but more somebody in the startup phase and what they've done so far and what their ideas are, where they've come from, and to maybe encourage other people to have a go at this if they're thinking about it, get some ideas. And it was wonderful. There must have been about 20 plus people here. The car park was full. We had nice tea and coffee and chats, and spent a good 2.5 hours talking about everything and anything, and I can't even remember. It was great. We also did bellyfest again this year, which was brilliant. 2 years of bellyfest. It's a regular on the calendar. It was slightly bigger even this year, and we had the pizzas and everyone was sitting all around here. It was a gorgeous evening, and again, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, bring people together over good food and real food, and that will always be the one of the priorities here. I want to share this with people, and speaking of which, I need to go and share a wedding with people because it's really late. I'm going to wrap it up, and hopefully it won't be so long next time. And take care. See you soon.